On November 3rd, 1981, Gerald Weems made his final delivery run from Omaha to Wichita. He called his wife from the Flying J in Beatrice at 6:47 p.m. Said he'd be home by midnight. His rig was found 8 days later in a Kansas City impound lot. Engine still warm, cab empty, logbook missing the final 3 pages. Highway Patrol ruled it abandonment. Case closed in 72 hours. But they never explained how a man who'd driven the same route for 19 years could vanish on a stretch of I-35 that doesn't appear on any current map, or why 6 other drivers reported the same exit that winter, an exit the Kansas Department of Transportation says was never built. Catherine Vance had spent 11 years in the Kansas State Highway Department's Records Division, cross-referencing survey maps with construction permits. It was quiet work, methodical, the kind of job where discrepancies were usually clerical errors, misplaced decimal points, a surveyor's tired hand. But in March of 1983, she received a request from a trucker's widow in Lincoln. A simple question. Could the department confirm the existence of exit 127B on Interstate 35 between mile markers 126 and 128? Vance pulled the construction records, then the survey maps, then the aerial photographs from 1974, 1977, and 1980. She found something worse than a clerical error. She found 7 different answers. The 1974 survey showed no interchange at that location. The 1977 aerial photograph showed construction equipment. The 1980 photograph showed nothing but wheat fields. Vance spread the documents across her desk and photographed them with her personal Polaroid, a habit she'd developed after a water main break destroyed 3 months of permit records in 1979. She labeled each photograph with date and source. Then she opened Gerald Weems' logbook, the pages his widow had photocopied before surrendering the original to Highway Patrol.
Mile marker 126. Southwick Interchange. Fuel stop, 18 minutes.
She checked the construction permits again. Southwick. No such project had ever been approved. Vance drove to Lincoln on a Saturday, her personal vehicle, her personal time. The Weems house sat on a quiet street near the university, aluminum siding and a chain-link fence. Dorothy Weems was 63 years old and had stopped asking questions about her husband 2 years ago.
The Highway Patrol said he walked away, started a new life somewhere. They said it happens.
Mrs. Weems, did your husband ever mention Southwick?
Never heard that name in my life.
What about the other drivers? The ones who reported the same exit?
Dorothy Weems looked at her hands. When she spoke again, her voice had changed.
I don't know anything about other drivers. I think you should go.
She hadn't mentioned other drivers. Vance had said it to test her. Dorothy Weems knew something, and whatever it was had made her afraid. Vance sat in her car for 20 minutes after leaving, writing notes in the spiral-bound pad she kept in her glove compartment. Dorothy's reaction. The logbook entry. The impossible photographs. She needed to find the other drivers. If they existed, they'd filed reports somewhere. Highway Patrol. Insurance companies. Maybe even the local papers.
6 other drivers. Same exit, same winter.
She circled the words twice, then underlined them. 6 drivers meant 6 separate accounts. 6 chances to find a pattern, or 6 chances to discover how far the discrepancy actually went. The Topeka Capitol Journal archives occupied a basement room that smelled of mildew and old ink. Vance spent 3 days there, working through microfilm reels from November 1981 through February 1982. She found the first mention on page 14 of the December 8th edition. A brief item buried beneath a story about grain prices.
Missing trucker's wife claims husband reported phantom exit before disappearance.
The reporter's name was Paul Lindquist. The article quoted an anonymous Highway Patrol spokesman dismissing the claim, but there was a detail that made Vance's hand stop on the microfilm crank. The widow quoted wasn't Dorothy Weems. It was someone named Ruth Callahan. Her husband had disappeared 3 weeks before Gerald Weems. Ruth Callahan lived in a trailer park outside Junction City. She was younger than Dorothy Weems, mid-40s, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent years squinting through windshields. She'd been a driver herself before her husband disappeared.
The paper got it wrong. Dennis didn't report anything before he vanished. He called me from that exit, said he'd pulled off to check his load, said there was something strange about the place.
Strange how?
He said it was too new. The concrete was white. The signs didn't have any weathering, like they'd poured it yesterday.
She paused, cigarette burning between her fingers.
Then the line went dead. That was the last time I heard his voice.
Vance wrote down the detail about the concrete. Too new, no weathering. She thought about the aerial photographs on her desk back in Topeka. The 1977 image showing construction equipment. The 1980 image showing wheat fields. If the interchange had been built and then removed, the ground would show scarring. Concrete foundations, drainage channels, something.
Did your husband mention any other vehicles at the exit? Any other drivers?
He said there was one car in the lot, a state vehicle, green with a seal on the door.
Vance felt her pen stop moving.
What kind of seal?
He didn't say, just said it looked official. Highway Department, maybe? He figured they were doing an inspection.
The Kansas Highway Department's fleet vehicles were painted dark green. Vance had driven one for 6 years. Vance returned to the archives. She found 3 more reports over the next week. A livestock hauler from McPherson who'd stopped at the exit in early December. A refrigerated truck driver from St. Louis who'd noted it in his CB log. A retired couple from Iowa who'd pulled off to use the restroom and found the facilities locked. The building dark, the parking lot empty, except for a single green sedan. Each account described the same details. Fresh concrete, new signage, a sense that the place had been constructed recently. And each account ended the same way. The driver left, continued their route, and when they tried to find the exit again, it wasn't there.
5 drivers, 5 accounts. Same exit, same green car.
The pattern was too consistent to be coincidence, and too impossible to be real. On her 4th day in the archives, Vance found the 6th account. It was different from the others. The driver hadn't disappeared. He'd survived. His name was Earl Braddock, and he'd given a statement to the Emporia Gazette in January 1982. According to the article, Braddock had stopped at the Southwick Interchange on the night of December 14th. He'd entered the rest stop building to use the facilities. When he came out, his truck was gone. He'd walked 3 miles to the next exit and called Highway Patrol from a payphone. They found his rig 2 days later in Wichita, undamaged, cargo intact.
Cargo intact.
She underlined the phrase. If someone had taken Braddock's truck, they'd returned it, with everything still inside. That wasn't theft. That was something else entirely. Earl Braddock still lived in Emporia. He ran a small engine repair shop on the outskirts of town, the kind of place with rusted equipment in the yard and a handwritten sign on the door. When Vance arrived, he was bent over a tractor engine, hands black with grease. He didn't look up when she introduced herself.
Highway Department. You people still pretending that exit doesn't exist?
I'm not pretending anything, Mr. Braddock. I'm trying to understand what you saw.
He straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag that was already filthy.
What I saw doesn't matter. What matters is what I found when I got back to my rig.
The cargo was intact. The article said...
The article was wrong. The cargo was different.
Braddock led her inside the shop, past engine blocks and transmission housings, to a small office in the back. He closed the door and pulled a lockbox from beneath his desk.
I was hauling farm equipment, combine parts from a dealer in Salina, manifested and weighed at pickup.
And when you got the truck back...
Same manifest, same weight, but the parts were wrong. Different serial numbers, different wear patterns, like someone had swapped the whole load with identical equipment.
He opened the lockbox and removed a stack of photographs. Polaroids, like the ones Vance had taken of the survey maps.
I documented everything, told the insurance company. They paid the claim and told me to forget about it.
Did you?
Does it look like I forgot?
The photographs showed combine parts laid out on a concrete floor. Braddock had placed rulers beside each piece for scale, written serial numbers on index cards. Vance studied them while he talked.
I called the dealer in Salina, asked about the original parts. He said they'd been resold 3 days after I picked them up. Same serial numbers, same buyer.
The same buyer bought your cargo twice?
That's what the paperwork said. Except, I never delivered the first load. It was in my truck when it disappeared.
Vance set down the photographs.
Someone took your cargo, replaced it with identical equipment, and then sold your original cargo using the same documentation.
Now you're starting to understand why I don't talk about this anymore.
Vance drove back to Topeka with Braddock's photographs in her briefcase. She spent the night in her apartment, spreading documents across her kitchen table. The aerial photographs, the logbook entries, the newspaper clippings, Braddock's Polaroids. She drew lines between them with a red pen, connecting dates and locations.
December 14th. Braddock's truck taken. December 17th. Original cargo resold in Salina.
3 days. Enough time to transport equipment. But the Interchange had appeared and disappeared multiple times over the winter. Each time a driver stopped, their cargo changed, or they vanished entirely.
It's not an exit. It's a transfer point.
She circled the phrase and stared at it until the coffee went cold. The next morning, Vance pulled the Highway Department's vehicle logs for November and December 1981. It took her 3 hours to find what she was looking for. On 14 separate occasions during those 2 months, a department vehicle had been signed out for route inspection along the I-35 corridor between mile markers 120 and 140. The same vehicle each time, the same driver.
Warren Hollis, senior surveyor.
She knew the name. Hollis had been with the department for 26 years. He'd supervised the original I-35 construction through Kansas in the late 1960s. He was also the man who signed off on the aerial survey photographs, the ones that showed construction equipment in 1977 and wheat fields in 1980.
14 inspections. No reports filed.
She closed the logbook and sat very still. Warren Hollis's office was on the 3rd floor of the Highway Department building, corner window overlooking the parking lot. Vance had walked past it hundreds of times without ever going inside. When she knocked, a voice told her to enter. Hollis was 71 years old, white-haired, with the leathered face of a man who'd spent decades squinting at survey equipment in open fields. He looked up from a stack of maps and smiled.
Catherine, what brings you up from the basement?
I have some questions about the I-35 corridor. The section between mile markers 126 and 128.
The smile didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted.
That's a quiet stretch of road. Not much to see out there but wheat.
That's what the photographs show. But the photographs don't agree with each other.
Hollis leaned back in his chair. His hands, spotted with age, rested flat on the desk.
Aerial photography is imprecise work, Catherine. Light conditions, camera angles, seasonal vegetation, all of it affects what you see in the final image.
I'm not talking about vegetation. I'm talking about a highway interchange that appears in some photographs and not in others.
There's no interchange at that location. Never has been.
Then why did you sign 14 vehicle logs for inspections of that section during the winter of 1981?
The silence in the office stretched until Vance could hear the fluorescent lights humming.
Those were routine surveys, nothing unusual.
You filed no reports for any of them.
Because there was nothing to report.
Vance opened her briefcase and placed the 3 aerial photographs on Hollis's desk. 1974, 1977, 1980. His eyes moved across them without expression.
This is your signature on all 3 survey approvals. Can you explain why the 1977 image shows construction equipment at a site that doesn't exist?
Equipment gets moved around. Contractors stage materials in fields all the time.
And the geometric patterns? Those aren't staging areas. That's a foundation pour.
Hollis pushed the photographs back toward her.
I don't know what you think you've found, Catherine, but I'd advise you to be careful. Some discrepancies are better left alone.
Is that a warning?
It's friendly advice. From someone who's been doing this work a lot longer than you have.
That night, Vance made copies of everything. The photographs, the logbook entries, the newspaper clippings, Braddock's Polaroids. She sealed them in a manila envelope and mailed them to her sister in Colorado with no return address. Then she drove to the stretch of I-35 where the Southwick Interchange was supposed to be. It was after midnight when she reached mile marker 126. She pulled onto the shoulder and got out of her car. The wheat field stretched flat and black under a quarter moon. No lights, no structures, no evidence that anything had ever been built there.
Where are you?
The wind moved through the wheat. Somewhere far off, a truck horn sounded. Vance stood at the edge of the pavement and stared into the darkness until her eyes ached. The next morning, Vance's supervisor called her into his office. His name was Richard Oberg, and he'd been with the department for 15 years. He was holding a personnel file.
Warren Hollis filed a complaint. He says you've been harassing him about survey records.
I asked him questions about discrepancies I found in aerial photographs.
The photographs he approved?
Yes.
Oberg set the file down and rubbed his eyes.
Catherine, you're good at your job, but Hollis has been here since before this building existed. You're not going to win a fight with him.
I'm not trying to fight anyone. I'm trying to understand why our records contradict each other.
Sometimes records contradict each other. That's why we have filing systems, to keep things organized.
Vance spent the next 3 weeks doing her regular work, filing permits, cross-referencing surveys, keeping her head down. But she also kept investigating, quietly, on her own time. She found the reporter who'd written the article about Ruth Callahan. Paul Lindquist had left the Capital Journal in 1982 and moved to Kansas City. She tracked him down through directory assistance.
I remember that story. My editor killed the follow-up.
Why?
He said it was too thin. One widow's claim about a phantom exit. No corroboration.
There were other drivers. At least 6 of them reported the same thing.
The line went quiet for a long moment.
I never found any other drivers. How did you?
Lindquist drove to Topeka the following weekend. He was younger than Vance had expected, mid-30s, with the restless energy of someone who'd given up on a story too soon and regretted it.
I spent 2 months on this in '82. Talked to Highway Patrol, the Department of Transportation, insurance companies. Everyone told me the same thing. No interchange exists at that location. Never did.
But you kept looking.
Until my editor told me to stop. He said I was wasting resources on a ghost story.
Vance spread her documents across the table between them.
6 drivers. Cargo swaps. A state vehicle at every sighting. This isn't a ghost story, Mr. Lindquist. This is something organized.
Organized by who?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Lindquist had contacts Vance couldn't reach. Insurance investigators. Trucking company dispatchers. Over the next month, they pieced together a fuller picture. Between November 1981 and February 1982, at least 11 cargo shipments had been altered while passing through the I-35 corridor. Farm equipment, electronics, pharmaceutical supplies. Each time, the original cargo was replaced with identical items bearing different serial numbers. Each time, the driver either vanished or reported stopping at an exit that didn't exist.
11 shipments. Combined value close to $2 million.
And no one noticed?
The recipients noticed. They filed insurance claims. But the claims were paid so fast, nobody thought to ask questions.
Paid by who?
3 different companies, all subsidiaries of the same holding group.
The holding group was called Meridian Agricultural Partners. Vance found its incorporation documents at the State Business Registry. The company had been formed in 1979 with 3 listed principals. 2 of the names meant nothing to her. The third made her stop breathing for a moment.
Warren Hollis.
She sat in the registry office and read the document 3 times. Hollis had a 15% stake in a company that was paying insurance claims for cargo that had been swapped at an interchange he'd helped conceal. The pieces were starting to connect, but she still didn't understand the mechanism. How do you build an interchange, use it to swap cargo, and then make it disappear?
Unless you never really build it at all.
Vance called Earl Braddock that evening.
When you stopped at the interchange, what exactly did you see?
I told you. Rest stop building, parking lot, vending machines.
What about the road itself? The exit ramp?
Concrete. Fresh poured. Signs looked brand new.
Did you see any vehicles enter or exit while you were there?
Braddock was quiet for a moment.
No, just the green car in the lot. And a truck parked behind the building. Big rig, like mine. I figured it was another driver using the facilities.
Did you see the driver?
Never did. When I came out, my truck was gone. So was the other one.
Mr. Braddock, I think that other truck was yours. I think they swapped them while you were inside.
The theory was taking shape. A portable structure. Prefabricated buildings, temporary signage, fresh poured concrete pads that could be broken up and removed. A crew that could assemble the illusion of a rest stop in hours and dismantle it just as fast. The drivers who stopped would see what they expected to see: an interstate exit, facilities, a place to rest. While they were inside, their trucks would be driven away and replaced with identical rigs carrying swapped cargo. The drivers who noticed the difference filed insurance claims. The drivers who didn't kept driving, carrying stolen goods to their legitimate destinations.
And the drivers who disappeared?
Vance stared at her diagram. Gerald Weems, Dennis Callahan, at least 3 others who'd never been found. What happened when a driver noticed too much? Lindquist called her at work the next day. His voice was different. Careful.
I found one of the other principals from Meridian. Name's Gene Dalton. He runs a construction company out of Salina.
Construction.
Specializes in temporary structures, festival stages, carnival setups, the kind of thing you build fast and tear down faster.
Vance wrote the name in her notebook.
Did you talk to him?
I tried. His secretary said he's been out of the country since last month. Business trip to Panama.
Panama.
That's what she said. But Catherine, I drove past his office this morning. There's a green state vehicle in the lot. Same model as the ones your department uses.
Vance drove to Salina that weekend. Dalton's construction company occupied a lot on the edge of town, surrounded by chain-link fence. She parked across the street and watched. At 2:15 in the afternoon, a man in work clothes emerged from the main building and walked to the green sedan in the lot. He was tall, gray-haired, moving with the careful gait of someone used to hard labor. He got in the car and drove away. Vance followed at a distance. The sedan headed south on Highway 81, then turned west onto a county road. After 20 minutes, it pulled into a farm property with several large outbuildings. Vance parked behind a windbreak and raised her binoculars. The buildings were too big for a working farm, more like warehouses, and there were trucks parked behind them. At least a dozen semi-trailers. She waited until dark, then drove closer. The farm property was quiet. No lights in the buildings, no movement. Vance parked on a service road and approached on foot. The first outbuilding contained exactly what she'd expected: prefabricated wall sections, portable restroom facilities, highway signage still wrapped in plastic, a stack of reflective mile markers. Everything you'd need to build a fake interstate exit.
There you are.
She photographed everything with her Polaroid, the flash illuminating the warehouse in harsh bursts. The second building held something else: farm equipment, combine parts, electronics still in manufacturer packaging. All of it organized and labeled, ready for shipment. She was photographing the serial numbers when the lights came on. Two men stood in the doorway. One of them was the gray-haired man from the construction lot. The other was Warren Hollis.
I warned you, Catherine. I told you some discrepancies are better left alone.
You're running a cargo theft operation. You build a fake exit, swap the loads, and sell the originals through your insurance subsidiaries.
That's a theory. You have no proof.
Vance held up her Polaroid camera.
I have photographs. I have shipping manifests. I have 6 witnesses who saw your interchange.
You have 5 witnesses. Gerald Weems isn't talking to anyone.
The way he said it made Vance's blood go cold.
What did you do to him?
I didn't do anything. Some drivers just get lost.
Gray-haired man, Dalton, moved toward her. Vance stepped back, bumping against a stack of equipment crates.
We've been doing this for 4 years, Catherine. Do you know how many shipments we've processed? How many insurance claims? No one's ever come this close. You should be proud.
The drivers who disappeared. Weems, Callahan, the others. They noticed the swap, didn't they? They figured it out.
Some people can't leave well enough alone.
Dalton was close now. Close enough that Vance could smell cigarettes and motor oil.
What do you want to do with her? Same thing we always do. She drove out here alone. No one knows where she is. By morning, her car will be in an impound lot in Oklahoma City.
Vance had one advantage. She knew the layout of the warehouse. They didn't know she'd been photographing it for 10 minutes before they arrived. She threw the Polaroid camera at Dalton's face and ran. Not toward the door, they were blocking that, but deeper into the building, toward the back wall where she'd seen a loading dock. Behind her, Dalton swore and stumbled. Hollis shouted something she couldn't make out. The loading dock door was chained, but the chain was rusted, the links thin. Vance grabbed a length of pipe from an equipment rack and swung it hard. The chain snapped on the third blow. She rolled under the door and into the night, wheat stalks slapping at her face as she ran. She ran until her lungs burned, then dropped into a drainage ditch and listened. Voices in the distance, a truck engine starting, headlights sweeping across the field. Vance pressed herself into the mud and waited. The truck passed within 50 feet of her, its lights illuminating the wheat above her head. She didn't breathe until it was gone. When she finally crawled out of the ditch, she was alone. Her car was half a mile away, on the service road. She reached it just before dawn, covered in mud, her hands shaking too hard to fit the key in the ignition.
Okay. Think.
She'd lost the camera, lost the Polaroids, but she still had the copy she'd mailed to her sister. And she still had Lindquist. She drove straight to Kansas City. By the time she reached Lindquist's apartment, it was mid-morning. He opened the door in yesterday's clothes, unshaven, eyes red from lack of sleep.
Jesus, what happened to you?
I found the warehouse. Hollis was there. And Dalton. They're storing everything. The prefab structures, the stolen cargo, all of it.
Did you get pictures?
I lost the camera. But I know what I saw. And I know what they're planning to do to make me disappear.
She told him everything. The confrontation, the escape, the truck searching for her in the dark.
We need to go to the police.
The police won't help. Hollis has been running this for 4 years. That means people are protecting him. We need evidence they can't ignore.
Vance spent the next week in hiding. Lindquist's apartment, a motel outside Lawrence, a truck stop near Manhattan. She moved every 2 days, paying cash, using payphones. The copies she'd mailed to her sister arrived in Colorado on schedule. Her sister drove them to a bank in Denver and put them in a safe deposit box. No questions asked. Meanwhile, Lindquist worked his contacts. He found a federal prosecutor in Kansas City who'd been investigating agricultural fraud. The prosecutor's name was Diane Howell, and she'd been building a case against Meridian Agricultural Partners for 18 months.
We knew something was wrong with their insurance claims. We just couldn't figure out how they were doing it.
They're building fake highway exits. Swapping cargo while drivers use the facilities.
That's insane.
I know, but it's also true.
Howell wanted proof, physical evidence that the warehouse existed. Vance drew her a map from memory, the location, the layout, the contents of each building. 2 days later, federal agents executed a search warrant on the property. They found exactly what Vance had described: prefabricated wall sections, highway signage, stolen cargo worth $1.8 million, and in a buried storage container behind the main warehouse, the remains of 3 men. Gerald Weems was identified by dental records, Dennis Callahan by a wedding ring his wife had described to Vance in her trailer. The third body was never identified.
We're issuing arrest warrants for Hollis and Dalton. You'll need to testify.
I know.
They're going to come after you.
Their lawyers, their friends, everyone who looked the other way for 4 years.
Let them come.
Warren Hollis was arrested at his home in Topeka on a Thursday morning. Vance watched it happen from a parked car across the street. 2 federal marshals walked him out in handcuffs, his white hair wild, his face slack with shock. He looked old in a way he hadn't before. Old and small. Gene Dalton was picked up at a motel in Oklahoma City, trying to cross into Texas. He had $40,000 in cash and a plane ticket to Panama in his pocket. The third principal of Meridian Agricultural Partners, a man named Robert Kershaw, turned himself in the following week. In exchange for immunity, he provided a complete accounting of the operation.
4 years, 63 shipments. Total value just under $12 million.
$12 million in stolen cargo. 3 men dead. All because of an exit that never existed. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Vance testified for 2 days, walking the jury through the aerial photographs, the logbook entries, the witness accounts, the warehouse contents. Hollis's defense attorney tried to paint her as a disgruntled employee with a grudge. It didn't work. The Polaroids she'd mailed to her sister were entered into evidence. Earl Braddock testified about his cargo swap. Ruth Callahan identified her husband's wedding ring. Dorothy Weems, who'd told Vance to leave her house 2 years earlier, sat in the gallery every day. She never said a word. She didn't have to.
On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find?
Guilty.
On the charge of second-degree murder?
Guilty.
Hollis received 35 years. He died in federal prison in 1991. After the trial, Vance drove back to the stretch of I-35 where everything had started. Mile marker 126. The wheat fields were gold in the late summer light, rippling in the wind like water. There was no sign that anything had ever been there. No scars in the earth. No foundation remnants. No evidence that a fake interchange had appeared and disappeared a dozen times over one Kansas winter.
You're still out here somewhere.
She thought about the drivers who'd stopped at that phantom exit. The ones who'd lived. The ones who hadn't. They'd all seen the same thing. Fresh concrete. New signs. A place that shouldn't have existed, but did. Just long enough to destroy them.
You can't build something that isn't real.
But you can build something that disappears. And sometimes, that's worse. Catherine Vance left the Kansas Highway Department in 1984. She took a position with the Federal Highway Administration in Washington, specializing in fraud investigation. The Southwick Interchange was removed from all official records during the 1984 redistricting review. The aerial photographs showing construction equipment were reclassified as surveying errors. The testimonies of the surviving drivers were sealed as part of the civil settlements paid to the victims' families. Officially, the interchange never existed. But in the files of a federal office building in Washington, there's a manila folder with Vance's handwritten notes. On the cover, in red pen, she wrote 3 words that no official record would ever contain.
It was there.
Some truths don't need official recognition. They just need someone willing to remember them.